Well, TCU are in the college football playoff picture, sitting fourth in the latest rankings released on Tuesday. This weekend, they'll try to avoid a slip-up versus Baylor, but the Horned Frogs have passed every test so far. They're closing in on their first perfect season since 2010. They've already booked their spot in the Big 12 title game, but are just 2.5-point favorites against the Bears. And them Bears be angry. They got throttled 31-3 last week by K-State. Let's look at the notable games on the college slate this weekend. Michigan and Georgia, big favorites in their games this week. Our SEC on CBS crew in Lexington for the All Bulldogs affair. We're starting to see title game berths get locked up in the Pac-12. Those two games of note there. They can get their combatants in the title game this weekend. USC will clinch with a win, and if the Trojans win and Oregon wins at home to Utah, they are also in. All right, let's get some early window picks from Mr. Football Game Plan himself, Emory Hunt. Emory, what's the biggest game that you're keeping an eye on Saturday?
Saturday, obviously the biggest game that only matters to me is this one right here behind me. It's the Raging Cajuns versus Florida State. That's a big game. We're 24.5-point underdogs to the Seminoles. I find that disrespectful. I'm hoping that we can keep this close. I think we can keep this close because we have that Cajun pride, but that's the biggest game. But outside of that, I'm looking forward to the rivalry games. As quiet as this rivalry weekend that we don't talk enough about anymore in college football. We used to make a big deal of this. You got Harvard, Yale. You have Grambling, Southern on Thanksgiving weekend. Next weekend, you have the Soul Bowl with Jackson State and Alcorn State. We don't talk enough about the rivalries, but this is the big game I'm worried about this weekend.
All right, there are some games tonight, and we start in the American, where 1-9 South Florida visits 3-7 Tulsa. The host sitting as 2-touchdown favorites there with the total at 58. Are you riding with the Golden Hurricane, or do you like the Bulls to get within the number?
Pillow fight of the week matchup right here. But I think what South Florida showed last weekend was a little bit of fight. They came out and they were actually threatening their opponent. They moved the football. They put the ball in the end zone. I think because we saw them with the new interim head coach right now taking over his second game under his tutelage, I think they scored some more points. So plus 14 for South Florida, it seems like an easier bet against Tulsa as opposed to what we saw last weekend. So I think they'll keep this one tighter. I like the Bulls plus the points.
Next up, Mountain West play between 6-4 San Diego State, 2-8 New Mexico. The Aztecs, they have a converted safety now playing quarterback, and that seems to have turned their season around. They're 14.5-point favorites, but Emory, this total here, 36.5 points seems a little low. What's your lean?
They also have a wide receiver wearing number 45. So, again, a lot is going on at San Diego State. But New Mexico's offense just isn't as good as it has been with their explosive triple option attack out of the gun. They can't do anything offensively, which puts them in a bind, puts their defense in a bind. So lay these 14.5 points with San Diego State. The Aztecs win on both sides of the line of scrimmage easily.
Our Brandon Baylor, who's done a couple of their games, big fans of the Aztecs as they go into that one this weekend. Lastly, Emory, we got to go back to the pros because I noticed what's on the right side of your screen there. It is a big weekend north of the border. The Canadian Football League will crown a champion. My hometown Winnipeg Blue Bombers facing the Toronto Argonauts in Regina, Saskatchewan. Bombers are going for the three-peat. They are 5.5-point favorites. Emory, you know your audience here. Give me a pick.
I was going to go to the game, then I saw it was in Regina. I was like, oh, no, that is super cold. I'll go when it's back in Toronto or Vancouver when we're in the Dome. But this game is going to be fascinating to watch because they only played once this year, and it was a very close game. So I do like Toronto plus the points. I think Toronto's defense will keep this one close, and everyone was looking at Winnipeg's offense and expecting a drop-off with Andrew Harris going and playing elsewhere, but Brady Oliveira out of North Dakota has been outstanding, over 1,000 yards, and they racked up yesterday with the Canadian Football League Awards, the most outstanding player in Zach Collaros, a quarterback, Coach of the Year, Terry Shea, most outstanding rookie wide receiver in Dalton Shane from Kansas State, and he also had the best offensive line in Stanley Bryant. So I think Winnipeg wins on the money line, but also tight game, just like the first matchup, go under the total of 48 points.
Well, last year's championship game, Winnipeg managed to squeak it out. You mentioned Zach Collaros, who was named the most outstanding player. A bit of a question mark with an ankle injury. He got injured last week against BC, but he is expected to play. And Emory, just as there are Super Bowl parties, there are Grey Cup parties in Canada this Sunday. If I'm hosting a Grey Cup party, what can I expect you to bring?
I will bring, let's see, what did I? Oh, I had duck the first time when I was in Canada. I was in London, Ontario at Western University, and I was at this sidewalk cafe, and it was the first time I had duck. Now, I've gone to a Grey Cup before. I went to the one in 2012 in Toronto, and that's when I got stuck in a Justin Bieber concert. That was the first time I ever heard of Justin Bieber. He was a halftime performing show. It's ridiculous. It blew my mind. And at halftime, here's the food. We had to wait in this long line for the halftime food. It was Domino's Pizza. I was like, what are we doing? It was crazy, but I enjoyed my time. I got to get back to another Grey Cup when it's indoors.
I'm just intrigued that you had duck at a Grey Cup party. That's amazing. Usually it's nachos and cheese and
right. Who had duck and Justin Bieber on the bingo card? Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
Why not wings? By the way, the perfect food. They can be an appetizer, a main course, and leftovers.
Wings and Nanaimo bars, and of course, beverages. Right. So Emory. Always good. Go Bombers. Mr. Football Game Plan, Emory Hunt, talking football bets with us. And Grey Cup food. Thanks, Emory.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.